Hey everyone, welcome to Product Momentum. I'm Sean Murray, Director of Product Management here at ITX.
And I'm Dan Sharp, a Product Manager at ITX. It's our privilege to continue the Product Momentum journey, a platform that celebrates the thinkers and doers who are shaping the future of software development.
That's right, Dan. Our goal is to introduce you to industry leaders, innovators, and practitioners, and bring you their insights, advice, and innovations. We talk with experts from product strategy, UX research and design, security, engineering, leadership, and more. We'll discuss how their approaches to problems help empower teams and build trust. And we'll explore trends, tools, and techniques that your team can use to deliver the software solutions your users need today. So tune in, stay curious, and join the conversation.
You can catch us on your favorite listening platform, or if you prefer the video experience, you can find all our latest episodes on the Product Momentum YouTube channel.
And if you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share. That way, we can be sure to provide you with the best podcast experience.
Sean, we're here at Industry. We just had an amazing conversation with Axel Sooriah of Atlassian. What'd you come away with?
Just a small market guy, right? Just down to earth, small market guy. No, doing huge things, and had some really great insights about the state of product today, and just about ways that you can improve your own product operations within your company, and how you need to be a leader and really take on the responsibility of experimenting and communicating to leadership and making sure that everybody understands what the exact needs of your users are right now.
Love that. Yeah, product people, we all have agency. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's get it. We are live here at Industry 2025. Today we are with Axel Sooriah. Axel is a product management evangelist at Atlassian, a small company. Some of us may have heard that or used some of their tools before.
Yeah, because every once in a while.
Every once in a while, yeah. So Axel is also one of the first people that I've ever heard of that either could have gone like professional chef or product management evangelist. So I want to learn a little. There's a story there somewhere. I want to learn a little bit about.
Chose the job with a salary. Okay.
Yeah, right. But one thing that I think is interesting about what we've been talking about industry is it's almost like we're getting back into things and talking about things that were like pre-AI, right? So like 14 to 60 months ago, we were talking a lot about bets, right? And like Michelle Parsons brought that back, right? But also I think that like product evangelism was something that was really big as like an industry term that people were talking about pre-AI. So let's like re-level set. What is product management evangelism, and like how are you helping push that forward?
That's a great question. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I want to just clarify the term because I think it's really important people understand this. So in a lot of companies, you will find somebody who has the title product advocate.
Okay.
So this person is typically somebody who's going to really be championing the product. So this solution that the company is selling, and they have a lot of product knowledge. They will know about all the features, how the features should be used in particular scenarios or use cases. And to some extent, they might even be incentivized on revenue linked to that particular product or selling that product, right? So that's a product advocate. Sometimes they're called product evangelists. My title at Atlassian is Product Management Evangelist. So my focus is on the practices and ways of working around product management. It just so happens that we have a concentration of these ways of working and practices around our more recent product called Jira Product Discovery, where I'm focused.
Okay.
But the interesting thing with evangelism is, or pretty much this flavor of evangelism is that, for example, I am not incentivized on sales directly. So I can go in a conversation unbiased and share my, opinionated view of how I think a company should be operating when it comes to like, how they prioritize or how they do road mapping or some of the rituals they might have in the teams. And that's priceless for our customers because they need like this opinionated view. So a lot of my time as a product management evangelist is spent, I'd say 60 to 70% of my time is spent externally customer facing, where I will be speaking to product leaders in our customer organization. So that could be a head of product, a VP of product, a chief product officer, who is trying to understand how they should set up their teams for success. and I will come and share what I'm seeing across the industry. And this is invaluable for them because obviously they don't have time to, the same amount of time than I do to spend outside and like see what's happening in the industry. So I can bring back these insights to them. And then on the other side, I can also show them how our customers who've been successful use our products to do that. So yeah, it's a great role, and I feel very grateful because I got to write my own job spec, which is beautiful.
That's the dream, right? That's the dream.
Oh, I love that you brought up ways of working. It dovetails really nicely with the conversation we just had with John Cutler, who is, again, talking about, in the internal, how to have good process, not just, process that's there. I'm curious, what insights you can share about, with your product, how you found ways of working that help the team succeed.
That's a great question. I think we sometimes assume that, and this is one of the biggest learnings for me. If you look at specifically at a household brand type company from the outside, you look at them and you think, these guys must be successful and they must know what they're doing, and their ways of working and practices probably like stellar. And then you go and like visit the teams, and you very quickly understand that everywhere in product management, wherever you sit, whichever size the organization is, it's pretty much the same challenges everywhere. So one of the main things I see is teams struggle in terms of collaboration. So it's disjointed. We talk a lot about product trios, but in reality, it's not always product manager, designer, engineering lead collaborating this way. The level of confidence in their decision making. So a lot of teams today make decisions that are not anchored in evidence, and it's not because they don't want to. It's sometimes because they're not set up
Right.
to do it
But they don't
properly.
have the evidence to.
They don't have the evidence, or they don't have access to customers, or they think they don't have access to customers. They are not doing product discovery. So things that might seem trivial to a lot of people that would attend a conference like this. But the reality is that a lot of teams are not operating at that level, right? So one of the, I'd say, biggest um, step change that I see in a team is always starts with goals. Um, I cannot stress the amount of teams I speak to where they do not have a clear idea of what the outcomes or goals are for their company or line of business or domain area. And I will raise this question in my, customer discovery. And so many times people will be like, yeah, increase revenue. Sure. Like, who doesn't want that, right? Um, so it's really like finding ways to, like, a lot of people think this should be top down. I'm not a believer of that. I think you have to have agency wherever you are in the organization. And actually, you'll find a lot of teams will go out of their, typical remit and go and clarify what are the goals. Like, if we were to solve this customer problem tomorrow, what does that look like? So goals is a really, really big topic. And the most successful teams have clarity on their goals. And it also means they have some sense of directional clarity when it comes to strategy and things like that. So I think goals for me is a big topic. The second thing is prioritization. Like, so many teams today do not have a structured way to do this. It's, loudest person in the room or highest paid person still. And the moment you come in and you can add a factual framework based in evidence to do this, the earlier you do it, the better. So successful teams have some form of a framework to do this. They don't have to take something off the shelf. It doesn't have to be rice or, whatever the newest, fanciest, shiniest thing is. But it's good to have some framework that works for your own context. And the third thing I'd say is how they engage the rest of their stakeholders and the rest of the organization. In a lot of companies, if you ask product managers um, how they think about engaging stakeholders, a lot of them just don't want to do it because it means more pain for them. So they have a plan, and a lot of times they will think that if they don't share it, then they're not inviting criticism. They're not inviting, curveballs that might be thrown to their plans because they're incentivized on shipping, right? So they think that they have everything they need to be able to ship this feature by a certain date, right? And actually, I'm trying to help them flip that conversation where actually the earliest you bring the stakeholders in, you can probably help them identify how to augment what you're trying to build. Um, and it's really like it's really going back to basics about collaboration, right? Like we talk a lot about like AI and I'm a big believer in the potential of AI, for example, but a lot of the challenges that I see day to day in teams is not so much about how they're using AI, it's really about collaboration and how they work with stakeholders, for example. And one of our key principles or ways of working at Atlassian is uh, transparency as a default, right? So everything we start, a document or roadmap, everything in its uh, initial state is publicly visible to anyone in the organization. So you want to have that level of transparency because it's just going to help the work that you're doing.
Lot to unpack there. I think like a one takeaway as a product manager, individual contributor, that if you don't have the goals or you're not sure the strategy, like you're not helpless, right? You have agency to go ask the questions and try and get it. I would hit a little bit more on, the collaboration piece. I've been in countless debriefs, countless, retros where the takeaways are like, better communication. Like we just got to communicate harder. There's the quote that I hate. It's like, the greatest myth about communication is that it happens. Like feels like a cop out.
Yeah.
But all right, how then, when we're collaborating, do we make sure that, not just that our message is sent, but that that's received, right? That the people that we're talking to are actually on the same page as us, and not just like, I sent the email out, I'm done, my hands are clean.
Yeah. One of the ways I think is really efficient and powerful to do this is to get whoever it is on the other side. Might be a DRI, a directly responsible individual, in a stakeholder group. It might be even somebody in your leadership team. You ask them to play back to you what they understood. It's typically a technique you would use in customer discovery to make sure that you understood the customer correctly, and sometimes you're rephrasing what somebody said. Um, I would urge people to do the same thing with their stakeholders and their leadership team, because sometimes there are gaps in our communication, and from these gaps could stem like really big like issues, right? So that's one way to do it. The second thing I would say is power of repetition. So we assume that we'll send a message out once. First of all, we assume that everybody's read it because we pushed it out. That's just not true because people, life is happening. The people you send this to probably have like 1,000 things in their inbox. It might, have fallen through the cracks. And the second thing is like, I'll take goals again as an example. People need to understand the reason why they're working on something, right? So this stakeholder you're working with, or even a teammate, they need to be reminded, why is it that we're building this increment of work, or why is it we're building this product to be able to help this customer to address this problem, and this is how it impacts our goal. So one of the ways we do this in our product team, for example, is we use a lot of video reels of our customers.
Okay, cool.
So we will record from our customer conversations. We will basically clip a lot of snippets and bring it together in like a video reel. We'll put in a Loom video. We'll make the Loom video publicly available to the organization, and we might put in an update and say, here's my weekly update. This is what is top of mind for me. And by the way, the reason we're working on this is because have a look at this clip. You play the clip, and it's basically customers explaining their challenges in their own terms. And it like creates this natural alignment for everyone on why is it we're working on this in the first place, right?
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the state of product report. We're really excited to get into that.
2026 is out now.
Correct. So this is our inaugural report. It's the first time we're doing this at Atlassian. And it's basically a study we conducted across more than 1,000 product professionals, mainly in the US, France, and Germany, which are like key geographies for us. And it's really interesting because some of the insights in there, I actually very frankly wasn't expecting, right? So one of the top insights is, for example, a lot of product managers out there are starting to use AI, and they are claiming back, 2 hours a day sometimes, but they still think that they don't have time for strategy. And it's really interesting because Jenny just did her talk, and she said something very similar. Around 80%, or I think it was around 90% of ICs still think they don't have time for strategy. So I think it's really interesting because we're at a point now where people can see the incremental gains they can have with AI. But I'm not always sure they're using it in the right way, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And the second thing is, one of the other insights is, um, one of the struggles of teams right now is they don't necessarily feel aligned with this like profit mandate there is in a lot of companies, right? So we talk a lot about employee fulfillment. Product managers need to feel invested in what they're doing, and this might sound a bit crazy, but like you could look at this and say, but shouldn't product managers have always been focused on making profit and driving revenue for their companies? That's true. But the challenge I think they have right now is they are really passionate about product discovery, and they are only incentivized on product delivery, right? So there's like this tension there where, that's causing a lot of stress for product managers. So these are the types of insights you'll find in this report. And I think what's really interesting is how product managers are actually feeling about work right now. So it's not so much about the trends like who's using AI, who's not using AI, and it's really like it's almost like a how do you say it? A pulse check on how product managers are feeling. So I'd urge anyone who's listening to this to go have a look at the report. One of the things I think is also incredibly important is if you look at the industry right now with everything that's happening with AI, I think it's creating a lot of anxiety for a lot of people. So I think 3 weeks ago or a month ago, I was in the Bay Area and we hosted a meetup with Ravi Mehta, who's launched recently the AI program at Reforge, and Akash Gupta, who's a very popular product influencer. And we asked people in the audience, what are you anxious about when it comes to AI? And you could already sense there was a lot of anxiety, but I was really surprised with their answer. So most of the PMs said they're not so much anxious about AI taking their jobs. They are more anxious about how they can figure out how to use AI in their product and in their product strategy.
Yeah.
And it goes back to this question of time. Like everybody feels like, they're in a hamster wheel and they don't necessarily have time to actually think clearly about how they can, let's forget about AI, how they can craft a solid strategy for their product, but more importantly, how can they integrate things like AI in their product strategy? So now that we've like surfaced this insight, I think it's really interesting to try and understand how we can then advance the craft and change the way we work to create that time and be more intentional and thoughtful about how we think about product strategy. Because at the end of the day, that's what really matters.
You said something really powerful. I thought, we want to be doing that, the product discovery, user discovery, learning more, but we're judged on delivery, right?
Yeah.
Like we're ultimately measured,
Right.
by what we
Did you ship?
did you ship, right?
And people behave like they're incentivized, right? So
Right. So how do we measure how do we measure effectiveness at discovery and like the value of what we've learned?
I think a big part of it is actually cultural. So our head of product in Jira Product Discovery has this mantra. So a lot of times he'll say, we just need to be on the same page here. 50% of the stuff that we're working on is going to fail.
Okay.
So if you already acknowledge that and accept that, and it's part of the failure as part of the culture, or accepting failure as part of the culture, it just creates the right level of psychological safety for teams to lean into things like experimentation. Experimentation is actually a big one for us because when people think about addressing a customer problem, they usually think about there's this problem. From this problem will stem a number of opportunities, a number of solutions, and we're going to go and build. And this process is usually we feel confident about solving the problem. We feel confident about this one solution that we explored. We're going to ship it now. The way we look at it so we have this framework at Atlassian called Wonder, Explore, Make, Impact. So these are 4 stages of an idea, basically. So Wonder is about exploring the problem space. Explore is about exploring solutions, and there's a lot of iterations there. And then make is about building, so we start coding. And then impact is about measuring what it is that we shipped, right? And a big part of explore and make is experimentation. I think one of the ways to answer your question about how can you measure the impact in discovery is right there in experimentation. So I think part of it is qualitative. So in the earlier discovery phases, you will have, customer interviews. It's very qualitative. You'll talk to people and you'll ask them things like, what are please tell me about, the type of scenarios that you typically go through. What does like your typical day look like? It's very open-ended, and they will share, problems. From that, you will gain insights, and you'll take these insights and it'll give you some form of qualitative feedback on this intuition that you have as a product manager that, this is a problem worth solving. And then in the next stage, you're going to explore solution and ask them to play back to you whether this prototype you're showing to them or this mock-up you're showing to them, how could that solve the problem that they had, previously articulated to you, right? And it's really interesting because if you ask them to articulate it back to you, you will very quickly understand whether this thing that you're showing to them, this experience that you're showing to them, is that going to solve the problem? So for me, like the first level of getting feedback or getting validation that this, or measuring that this is going to drive the business forward, is sure, it's qualitative, but that's the first level and it's really powerful. And for me, the second thing, which is a little bit more factual and a little bit more measurable, is the experimentation. So for example, you'll say, okay, we have a good idea of that this solution might solve this problem for a customer. We will expose 10 customers to this. And then after 10, we'll move to 100. And after 100, we'll move to 1,000. So this is the way we do it at Atlassian. So in the make phase, we go 10, 100, 1,000 and general availability. It allows us to not only understand the impact that the solution is having for our customers, and it's still, to some extent, you're still doing solution discovery, right? And then you're refining the nuances of the problem you're solving for 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people. It's not the same problem you're solving at the 10 scale than at the 1,000 scale, right? Okay. So these nuances are really important. It's helped you bring some level of fidelity in your decision making as well.
I'm curious, talking about the discovery piece, and bringing it back to the conversation on, shareholder value, driving revenue, right? Yeah, how as product people do we help strengthen the argument for that discovery piece and tie it back to value when there's so much pressure, like, hey, that's great, but that's not shipping code.
I think for me, a big part of it is confidence in decision making. So if you think about the job, what is the job of a product manager at the end of the day? I think we get paid to decide. We get paid to decide what should we do to address something that we've identified is a problem in the company and could help the company in what Gibson Biddle calls margin enhancing ways, right? So solving a problem is great. Solving a problem in a way that drives, revenue and business for the company is better. So for me, convincing the leadership team to create more space for discovery is actually not so much going out and trying to convince them, is actually showing them what it looks like. So you remember earlier I talked about these customer reels. There is no arguing with a video and clips of customers explaining the intensity of a problem. You will find the prevalence of the problem. If you have 20 video clips of customers, 20, 30-second video clips, which is like, this 10-minute video of customers explaining that, this is a really intense problem with them. And this is the power of video, because you could actually see people like sharing how painful something is for them. It steers the conversation, because like, why would I always say this, like, why would an exec not agree with the reality of a customer?
Right.
Yeah, right. And then it could be true that this person doesn't agree with the customer reality, and maybe you have to think of where you are, right? Maybe you need to leave the company because it's not the right place. It's not always,
It's not all roses all the time.
yeah, and sometimes you're just in the wrong environment,
Right.
and maybe it's time to move on. But that's on you. You decide, right? It's your life. But for me, a lot of it is like, how do you show your leadership team that when you anchor your decision making in evidence, the outcomes are better?
Right.
And it starts with like showing them they need to see customers talking about their problems. And then you need to show them the correlation between that customer evidence and the work that you're doing.
Right.
Because customers said this, and because we can tell they're experiencing this problem, these are just the solutions we explored. This is how they played back to us that these solutions were going to help them. One of the ways actually we do this is we have this framework, which was actually launched by Superhuman, the email client,
Okay.
where they ask a customer during discovery, typically solution discovery, how disappointed would you be if we like remove this product from you today? And I think it's a brilliant
Yeah.
question, because a lot of customers will say extremely disappointed. If they are extremely disappointed, it means there's something there. The next level to that is like trying to understand propensity to buy. Like, customers will explain their problems. Like, your real value of success is when somebody is ready to take their credit card out and actually pay for the service you're trying to offer, or the value you're trying to offer, right? So there are ways to measure this in the customer discovery cycle to give you that level of confidence. And you talked about communication earlier. Like, it's all about surfacing all of that to your leadership team. One of the things we do in the Jira Product Discovery team is there's a regular sync every 4 to 6 weeks with our senior management team. So that'll be the head of engineering, the SVP of product for our business line, the design leader, and the business leaders within Jira Product Discovery. And we use it both as a moment to update them on how the business is doing, but also as a moment to educate them around how we do product. Because we just assume all the time that people know all the stuff we're doing. It's just not
Right.
true. Like, and everybody has got a million things going on, right? So again, power of repetition, and always be educating the leadership team around, what it is that we're doing, why, and what does that look like?
I like the first thing that you talked about when I asked about how do we measure the effectiveness of experimentation was like you talked about the importance of leadership in essentially allowing that space for you to go and experiment, but also that it's an expectation, right?
Correct.
So, we say at ITX that like the output of leadership is creativity. So I think that's really, I think your answer is really in line with that. Thank you so much for being with us today. What is up next? Like, tell us everything that you're doing with Jira Product Discovery, and like, where is that product going?
So we've got a lot of big plans for Jira Product Discovery in the coming year. So we recently announced the acquisition of a company called Cycle, which is a feedback management tool. And they've been doing this for ages. And it's really like a central hub where you can gather feedback from multiple sources, make sense of it using AI, and then circle back to your customers once you've, for example, shipped something and said, hey, you remember we had this conversation, or you sent us this request, 6 months back or a year back. I would just wanted to let you know we've actually shipped this and addresses this concern that you raised a while back. So they were really good at this, and we recognized that. And now they're joining our team, which means that we're going to be expanding our capabilities in Jira Product Discovery to focus on a solution that looks at feedback management at scale, including intake, for example, which is like a really big use case for a lot of our customers, especially in the mid-market to large enterprise segment. So that's a big part of it. The second thing we're focusing on is how do we infuse the PM workflows that people do in Jira Product Discovery with AI? So how do we facilitate collectionist feedback is one thing. How do we use, for example, AI agents to review the work that you're doing? How do you create sparring partners using AI agents that can review your work? For example, like I gave in my talk yesterday, I gave an example of how to use a Rovo agent. Rovo is our agentic platform as a PRD coach. So you could say, for example, when my work transitions from this status to that status, invoke this AI agent, and it will come and it will read what you've produced, and it will provide some feedback and say, hey, I think there's some gaps here. This is how I would address it. Here are some suggestions for you to improve your work. So these are things that weren't quite possible a few months back, a year back, right? But now with AI coming into fruition, we can see all of these opportunities of like, how do we help our customers and our own product managers improve the way they work in our product. So I think these are two big topics. I think one of the things I'm also really conscious of is Atlassian is a platform business. So Jira Product Discovery is a part of, a bigger platform where you have a lot of your company knowledge in Confluence. You have a lot of your engineering craft knowledge in Jira. You might have your code in Bitbucket, and we can use is something we call our teamwork graph, which is the architecture that underpins all of our AI products to actually help you do a better job in general, because we have all of that rich context that you wouldn't typically have if you use like a ChatGPT or a Claude or things like that. So these are really exciting opportunities for Jira Product Discovery, but more broadly for the Atlassian platform.
Awesome. Where can we find that state of product?
You could Google it, first of all. That's probably the easiest thing to do.
Well, that was
The right answer. So type State of Product Report 2026, you'll find it. Otherwise, I suggest following me on LinkedIn. I've got a link in my bio that will take you to a link tree. One of the links there is the State of Product Report, but also I do a lot of demos and evangelism around how product managers can improve their ways of working using AI, for example. So follow me on LinkedIn, and yeah, if you want to get in touch, just DM me.
awesome. All right. The last thing that we always ask our guests is, what are you reading right now?
That's a great question. I read a lot of comic strip. I don't know if
Fantastic.
it's a very big culture of comics in Europe, particularly in France and Belgium.
Okay.
I don't know. It's in French. I don't know how I would actually translate it, but it's like sci-fi fiction based on like a world where wind is a thing. There's this planet, and then everybody's like trying to like figure their life around wind, because like yeah, sorry, I can't extend it in better terms, but that's
Fantastic.
right.
Yeah.
So we love this question because we get such a range of answers. Some people are like reading very like professionally focused books, and somebody is like, I'm reading like this biography on Lincoln, and people like you and I are reading comic books.
Yeah.
So it's
This is my pulp paperback. Yeah.
yeah, right. Thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
It's been great.
Love it.